For many of you, this might be the last straw, or within this video, several last straws clutched all at the same time. But this one in particular. Keir Starmer has, for the first time, said he is ready and willing to put UK troops on the ground in Ukraine to help, quote, guarantee its security as part of a peace deal. But also later in the video, how Yvette Cooper seems to be copying Elon Musk's Doge, Department of Government Efficiency. But that's just a little bit odd for reasons I'll explain, but I'll come back to that a bit later. Now, I understand there's a lot of different views surrounding Ukraine, there's a lot of support, etc. But those of us in the UK, many of us in the UK, probably feel quite concerned at the notion of putting UK troops on the ground in Ukraine in potential direct conflict with Russia. That I can't stress enough. It's garnered the attention of the BBC, Sky News, and the editor of The Telegraph, to name a few. I'll link one or two of those in the description below. You can go and read them. But first of all, as usual, if I may ask you to subscribe to my channel if you haven't already, so you don't miss any future videos, help my channel grow. I believe I am one of the very few independents that will bring you these things and comment on them objectively and tell you what I think. I don't hold back because I'm not a news company. I don't have anyone telling me what I can and can't say. Within reason. So let's take a look at this. First of all, let's look at the BBC's coverage of this. Now, the headlines are taken very, very mildly out of context in that it just says, PM ready to put troops on the ground in Ukraine to protect peace. So you may read that as it's happening now. They are doing so. That's not quite the case, but it's not far from happening if they are looking at a peace deal and talks and things like that. They lead into the article. Sir Keir Starmer said he's ready and willing to put UK troops on the ground in Ukraine to help guarantee its security as part of a peace deal. Now, I need to break this down objectively because in one sense, it says that he's willing to put them there as part of a peace deal and emphasizes that it is just there to keep the peace, it's not there to fight, it's not there to be aggressive, etc. But when you read into the article objectively, there are only two possible outcomes. There is either peace or direct conflict with Russia. So let's have a look at what it really says. The UK Prime Minister said securing a lasting peace in Ukraine was essential if we're to deter Putin from further aggression in the future. Ahead of emergency summit, they said that the UK was prepared to commit to security guarantees in Ukraine by putting our own troops on the ground if necessary. He says, I do not say that lightly. I feel very deeply the responsibility that comes with potentially putting British servicemen and women in harm's way. Adding, but any role in helping to guarantee Ukraine's security is helping to guarantee the security of our continent and the security of this country. So when we look at what he's really talking about here, if we take a look at this rather rudimentary map, you can see precisely where Russia is. I had to use this rudimentary one because when I asked AI to produce one, it produced this garbled nonsense. But alas, this rudimentary map shows Russia. This map shows Ukraine, obviously right next to Russia, if you don't know by now. And here we have the UK, some distance away, not all that far away, but some distance away, not sharing a border. So for Keir Starmer to be saying that he's going to put UK troops on the ground in Ukraine to guarantee peace, that can only mean to defend them if a ceasefire fails, which means there is then a direct choice. Are they there to just stand in the way, or are they there to engage? And if they are there to engage, to put it bluntly, that is putting UK troops in direct conflict with Russia, which puts the UK in direct conflict with Russia. I'm saying it as it is because objectively, that's how it is. There's no other way to put this. But then the article goes on. This means UK troops could be deployed alongside soldiers from other European nations alongside the border between Ukraine-held and Russian-held territory. Keir has previously only hinted that British troops could be involved in the safeguarding of Ukraine after a ceasefire. Health Secretary Wes Streeting said the government views the war in Ukraine as the front line for Europe and the front line for Britain. But is it really a front line for Britain? I'm no military expert. But looking at these maps with the location of Ukraine, the location of the UK, and the location of Russia, it doesn't really make all that much of a difference. But like I say, I'm no military expert. But it does seem to me that if the UK sends troops to Ukraine, it is in no uncertain terms putting the UK in direct conflict with Russia if such a ceasefire ends. Former MI6 chief Sir John Sawyers also warned that any peacekeeping force sent to Ukraine after the war must have a very clear mandate to ensure ceasefire agreement holds, which is another way of saying, well, if it doesn't hold, then we are in serious trouble. I think that is a very reserved way of saying we are in very serious trouble if that ceasefire agreement doesn't hold, because we will have UK troops on the ground in Ukraine. Let me know what you think about this in the comments, because I think as people of the UK, much more than just voting for a government, and we got the government that we've got now, I think much more than that, I think we do and we should have a say in what really happens and whether UK troops go to Ukraine in situations like this. Let me know what you think in the comments. I think that would be a very fair thing to do. But this, among many things, appears to be an example of what Keir Starmer and his government might do that many of the UK might not agree with and may not be in the best interests of the UK. But as I say, I'm not the expert. But now also another odd bit of news that Yvette Cooper appears to be trying to copy Elon Musk's Doge unit. I tweeted somewhat jokingly a few days ago that UK needs a Doge. I do wonder if they're reading my tweets, because this is the news headline that pops up, and this was my original tweet. But more about that in just a moment. Don't go away. Now, you will have often heard me say that the law is often reflected in both politics and the news. But then politics influences the news in that you get left and right-wing news and some news that's reported in the centre. But how do you know if you are being fed just one side or the other? That is when I'm very pleased to introduce you to Ground News, which is both an app and a website which gives you broad access to the world's news. When looking at an article in Ground News, it provides you a bias distribution to tell you whether or not it's more left-wing, right-wing or central media outlets. It also provides you a factuality score which indicates the credibility of each source that you read, and also an indication as to ownership if that's something of interest to you. You can search Ground News by using a keyword or by the URL of an article that you've already read. Taking, for example, this URL from a Channel 4 news item with the car ramming in Munich that injured 28 people. You can see from the bias comparison at a glance what the left and right-leaning outlets say about the news. The left emphasizing emotional severity of the incident, describing it as a car ramming, but the right presenting it as a more factual tone, focusing on the number of people injured and the police response. Looking at some of the headlines, you can see that some of the left-leaning outlets leave out the fact that it was an Afghan migrant from the headline altogether. From New Statesman, the Munich car attack will have powerful political echo. Japan Today, at least 30 injured in a car ramming attack in Munich before German election. And again from Channel 4, Munich car ramming, children among 28 hurt in suspected attack. Contrasting with headlines from right-leaning outlets from Gripped, Afghan asylum seeker plows into crowd. From The Telegraph, Germany has lost count of migrant terrorist attacks. And from the New York Sun, Afghan asylum seeker rams car into Munich crowd. But sometimes you'll find that there's little to no coverage from one side of the political spectrum or the other. That is why Ground News has a blind spot feature that helps you to spot areas that are only covered disproportionately by either the left or the right. Take, for example, this article about Kamala Harris being a Democratic frontrunner for the California governor position in 2026. There are no left-leaning outlets covering this story whatsoever. And the more you use Ground News, you can customize your feed and build up your discovery of new topics to read about. And of course, as a partner to my channel, I get you a fantastic discount, which is 40% off. That's 40% off using my link on screen and in the description, which gives you unlimited access to the world's news. So the next time you're wondering whether you're being fed the left or the right and you're just not sure, check out Ground News and you'll have the full picture. So back to Yvette Cooper and Britain's Doge unit. And I find this really bizarre. But here we are. I mean, every day is a new learning curve here with this government. But here we go. Yvette Cooper sets up Britain's Doge unit to scrutinise every penny and cut down on Home Office waste. Nice to know they admit that the Home Office wastes money. But let's have a look at what actually is going on, because there's some call for scrutiny here if they are really talking about where money is wasted. I can give you a few examples, and if they are watching my tweets and my videos, this will be a hint as to where some of that money is being wasted, on the face of it, at the very least. It says here, Yvette Cooper has established a new unit to combat waste in the Home Office, modelled after Elon Musk's Department of Government Efficiency, Doge. The Doge division has already begun freezing contracts deemed to be of misuse of taxpayers' money. The unit will scrutinise and oversee every penny of departmental spending, with a particular focus on limiting the use of external consultants. because we've seen consultants and other contracts and things handed out. I won't even bother bringing them on screen. I've looked them up. Some of them spending over £80,000 on curtains somewhere else in South Africa. Ostensibly nothing to do with the UK, and yet they've spaffed £80,000 away on that. So really make of that what you will. That's where some of the money is going. And don't even get started on what they spend with the World Health Organization. Expensive away days as external venues are set to be banned after the new initiative, following criticism of recent civil servant events held at the opulent Central London Ballroom, etc., etc. They appear to be looking through these contracts. But let me give you a few examples here. This one, actually, this is the curtains one here. This brought to our attention by the procurement files. These are not secret files. These are all public documents that many people have just not even bothered to look at for a long time, because why would you? Because it's nothing to do with you. But this highlights that the UK taxpayer will spend £84,500 almost £1,000 on an ad hoc basis for the British High Commission in South Africa. Curtains. £84,500 on curtains. Now, I know curtains are not cheap, but £84,500? That's bizarre. Maybe the Doge should look at that. Another example, but this is sort of cross-policy examples here. Bridget Phillipson's VAT on school fees. This will now have to go in the VAT on school fees playlist, because there's a whole playlist on my views and destruction of this policy of VAT on school fees thing. This is one such example, which is exactly what I said would happen. And here it is. Now in headlines, this is in the Telegraph, I'll link below. Labour forced my daughter out of private school. Now taxpayers foot the £8,000 bill for taxis. Now again, this is exactly what I said would happen, because in short, adding VAT to private school fees is adding £3,000, £4,000 and above £1,000 per year, which parents simply cannot afford. Now, they scrimp, save, work multiple jobs, and really work hard to send children to private schools. VAT slap 20% on those fees. Suddenly, they can't afford them anymore. This one example here increased the fees by £3,270. So the parents said, we just can't afford this anymore. We can't just magic up another £3,000 and a bit, and it's many more in some cases. And if you've got 3 children, that's almost £10,000. So they just can't do it. Many parents, many of you, if you just asked to pull out £3,000-5,000 out of a drawer, you probably can't do it. Or you may choose not to do it, which is entirely your right, entirely your decision. If Labour put this VAT on the school fees, then you've got the choice to not carry on paying it. So they then inquired with local schools. Lo and behold, as I predicted, there are no spaces available. Now, I know psychologists that have said, it's so fine, there's plenty of space, which is utter nonsense. There isn't plenty of space. As we can see here, these examples. No spaces within a 20-mile radius of her home in Lincolnshire. So the local authority has a duty to ensure that there are enough schools for the children. And if not, they have to do something about it. And if they can't do something about it, and they don't do something about it, they're in breach of statutory duty, they can be sued, there's compensation. So to avoid all of that, they paid for taxis. Now, I can vouch for exactly this scenario. I'll take the screen share off while I tell you a little story. Now, this will just go to prove that this is not a new thing. When I went to school many, many years ago, and I turned up at school in September to start my A-levels, and bearing in mind that they'd agreed to run those courses for me, etc., I was starting my A-levels then in September. So I had a message in the bulletin in the morning to go to the careers office. They sat me down and they said, unfortunately, which is a word I hate because it's just sugarcoating bad news, just give me the bad news, and I hate that word to this day. They said, unfortunately, we're not running law, computer technology, and music. So you can't do those here. So I said, well, what do I do? And they said, well, you have to choose other subjects or go somewhere else. And I said, well, I can't go anywhere else because how am I going to get that combination of subjects last minute somewhere else? So I ended up going to 3 different schools. And initially, my school had to pay for taxis because I put in a formal complaint. They tried to bat it. I went to my MP. And I even threatened to sue them, I think, as I recall, pre-lawyer days, you understand. I was looking to do A-level law. I did ultimately go on to do A-level law, did reasonably well, but they had to pay for the taxis to get me to that school because otherwise they massively let me down. So this is not a new thing. This has been going on for a long time. And obviously, relatively quickly, I got my driving license. And so then I was driving myself. But that's not before they caused me this problem. So I can tell you that that very much is a problem. The Telegraph ran an investigation and said that 22 local authorities are forecast to have no vacancies for pupils in September in at least one year group. Experts now fearing taxpayers will be forced to spend thousands and thousands of pounds on taxis. And all of that, by the way, not counting for the fact that not only do they not get the VAT money that they were banking on from the original, so they don't get the £3,000 on the VAT that they were going to get initially, but they now have to fund the local authority space, which is, the last time I checked, £8,000 on the school fees alone. For the state-funded schools, that's what it costs per place. So that, plus putting this girl in a taxi there and back every day, is over £8,000. So not only do they not get the VAT, it's a triple whammy. Not only do they not get the VAT they were banking on, but then they have to fund the local authority for the space that they didn't have to fund before when the parents were paying for the private school fees, and they have to double it up by paying for taxis to get her to that school because there's no school available within a 20-mile radius. The closest school that they found that they had to ferry her by taxi was 25 miles away. So if Yvette Cooper wants to set up in this Doge unit to look at something where money's being wasted, maybe have a chat with Bridget Phillipson on reversing this policy. And you'll probably save a bit of money there, because this will not be an isolated case. It's just one that's being reported. Speaking of money wasted, this one here, the police, this is a post on X, I'm just showing you as it is. This video, I kid you not, shows two police officers. If I enlarge it somewhat, these police officers are standing here, completely ignoring the van, by the way, that is parked on the side, which appears to be parked on a junction, on a curve, double yellow lines, double give way lines, and by the looks of it, blocking in the car in front. So it's obstructing the highway, it's obstructing a junction, it's parked on double yellow lines. You can count the offences there, and the police are obviously doing nothing about it. Why are they doing nothing about it? Because this post claims that West Midlands Police have deployed two police officers to watch someone silently praying, ignoring the van in the process, and ask the question, is this really a good use of money and resources? Well, on the face of it, no. Now, it appears that this might be, I haven't read into it, it appears that it might be one of these public space protection order things, and the police are there because it appears that someone's breaking a public space protection order, and they value that over the van that's causing a danger to every other road user. But here we are. Speaking of other wasted money, whilst they were going on about this 20-something, whatever it was, £billion black hole, Rupert Lowe raises a very interesting point that we are, on the face of it, giving more and more and more money away to Mauritius, and that is notwithstanding the recent claims of investigations against the officials in Mauritius. Rupert Lowe says, stop giving our money to Mauritius. Starmer gives another £12 million in foreign aid despite the Chagos giveaway. Now, I really don't understand why. I tweeted as much, posted as much. I said, just why? Why is this happening? Why are they sending millions and millions of pounds away when they are giving the islands away and paying for the privilege? Now, you may have also seen in the news that they are saying they're going to spend more money on legal aid to process asylum claims, which will process them more quickly. Now, okay, that probably will process them more quickly, but that will also mean that more of them end up staying in the UK and more money spent on them, etc. Which is a little bit odd then when you compare that with the small boat arrivals, which we keep a track on. 12th of February, 99 arrived in two boats. 9th of February, 62 arrived in two boats. But 2 days ago, 15th of February, 240 arrived in four boats. But the interesting thing is, it's not just arriving by boat. They are actually, by the looks of this Sky News video here, they are, on the face of it, picked up even before they get to shore, picked up by our own boats and brought in. So this is very much not protecting our borders. So if they want to save money, this is really one area that they should be looking into. But in the way that they are looking into it, apart from the previous videos that I've mentioned, sending money to Tunisia to increase their employability so that they have no need to come to the UK, which you remember I said on the face of it appears to prove that they are economic migrants, get a load of this updated one. This updated plan is Britain is expensive, run down and prejudiced. This was an ad campaign apparently run aimed at driving Albanian migrants away from coming to the UK. It says social media videos show shops covered in graffiti and migrants complaining about Brexit, discrimination and the cost of living. You really couldn't make this up, and you really would struggle to believe it. But this is the Independent article. I will try to remember to link below, but you can find it online if I forget. A government-funded advertising campaign depicts the UK as expensive, run-down and prejudiced in a bid to dissuade Albanian migrants from coming to the country. Videos using the social media drive designed to reduce the number of people on small boats crossing the channel show shops covered in graffiti and broken furniture scattered on a housing estate, which is pretty much what a lot of the UK looks like right now because of the run-down nature of these areas. Calling it and saying it as it is. It's a fact. Titled Stories of Britain. They also contain Albanian refugees complaining about the cost of living in Britain and the prejudice they face as part of a £3.75 million a year project funded by the Foreign Office. So, bring in this full circle. If I find my tab here of Yvette Cooper saying that she's setting up this Doge, the Britain's Doge unit to scrutinise every penny and cut down on Home Office waste, I suggest, respectfully, that the £3.75 million spent on this social media advertising campaign to dissuade these migrants from coming to the UK in the first place, perhaps spend that money on actually physically defending the borders. Safely, it can be done safely without breaking any international laws. The only reason they say that this is in conflict with international law is because we have a duty to ensure that they are kept safe. But if we can pick them up safely, we can take them back to France safely. And if even some of this £3.75 million was spent on persuading France to take them back, rather than on a social media advertising campaign to convince them that the UK's rubbish and they shouldn't come here, I find this utterly bizarre. And I know I try to keep my videos objective and opinion-free, but I cannot, with a straight face, tell you that I think this is a good idea. I just can't do it. A social media campaign to try to convince these migrants that the UK is really rubbish right now. Don't come over here. And it seems that the stats agree with me. Apparently, an internal Foreign Office document seen by the newspaper, reported by the Independent here, found that there was limited evidence of the effectiveness of what it dubbed to be dissuasive communications approach. Well, shock horror, your advertising campaign to dissuade them from coming here didn't work. I can't say I'm surprised. So there's a waste of £3.7 million that could have been better spent elsewhere. So Yvette Cooper really is setting up this Doge, and if they are really watching my videos for ideas, there's an idea. Maybe don't spend £3.75 million on a social media advertising campaign that is just not going to work. But let me know your thoughts and comments in the box below. Let's see if we can get some ideas going in the comments. I think as a society and as a community, we'll probably do a better job than the Home Office and the Foreign Office. But what do I know? I'm just a legal commentator. But in the meantime, do let me know your thoughts. Thank you for watching. Make sure you do subscribe to my channel. I am independent and I'm going to stay so. So thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you next time.